Good afternoon. The smudging ceremony is a common purification rite that is performed by an elder or a knowledge keeper. The ceremony involves burning one or more sacred medicines, such as sweetgrass, sage, cedar, and tobacco. There are different variations on how a smudge is done. Today, we are joined by Elder Albert Dumont, who will be using sweetgrass. La cérémonie de purification au foin d'odeur est un rite pratiqué par un aîné ou un gardien du savoir. La cérémonie consiste à brûler une ou plusieurs herbes médicinales sacrées, comme du foin d'odeur, de la sauge, du cèdre et du tabac. Il y a plusieurs façons d'effectuer cette purification. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes accompagnés de l'aîné Albert Dumont, qui utilisera du foin d'odeur.
Clay, Albert Dumont, Ninjnikaz, Kitikanzibi, Nonjiba, Kakina, Ninja Rendigane, Cage, Kenamikog, Oshki Nodu. Very honored as an Algonquin from this territory to be here today to help out with this important change of command ceremony. And I want to begin by first of all, I'd like to smudge the circle. I'm going to use sweetgrass. You know, our belief is that the sacred medicines are empowered to cleanse the negative energy, to purify the space, and also to, whenever the medicine is burning and smoldering, our belief is that we can put our words, our thoughts, our good intentions into the smoke as a prayer, from the spiritual to the physical. Our belief is that the smoke will take our words and our prayer to whoever it is in the spiritual place who hears these things and considers these things. So that's why I will be smudging the room. And I'll have more to say in a minute. So today, on this important time for Canada, for the armed forces, and for Canadians in general, I'd like to request that my hope is that the new leader will take into consideration when necessary to reflect on his bloodline, his family line, and look at those ancestors of his for thousands of years ago, the courage that he could call by his side, the wisdom that he could summon that come from his bloodline and his family line. As an Algonquin, I make a request that the Kichizibi, the great river known as the Ottawa River, also send wisdom and encouragement to the new leader. When necessary, call upon the trees, and the animals, and the birds, and all life that the good spirit placed here to stand beside the new leader in the coming seasons and years. I'm going to offer words of a prayer from Temagami First Nations. This prayer is from a Second World War veteran named Bill Twain. Mr. Twain passed away a long time ago, but his family line kept this prayer alive. This prayer could be thousands of years old. And I just want to make it clear that Mr. Twain was wounded in the Second World War, and he had shrapnel in his body until his dying day, which caused him an excruciating pain now and then. And this is his beautiful prayer. For all the things the Creator has placed in our homelands that help human beings to live well. We acknowledge and honor every tree, river, lake, and stream. We acknowledge and honor every bird, animal, fish, and all the good human beings. We're grateful for all those things in the sky world and all those things that live beneath the surface of the earth. We're grateful too for the bees and all the other insects that help the plants to grow. We're grateful for our medicines and for our ceremonies. We're grateful for our ability to prepare ourselves spiritually for that spirit world that will begin when this short physical life ends. We're grateful for our ability to bring peace and comfort to one another during times of troubles and in times of anguish. We ask you now, good spirit, to fill this space with your blessings and to touch each of us with the wisdom of our Anishinaabe ancestors. We ask that for wellness and health and wisdom and courage for the new leader. We ask that the trail of life will be blessed by Creator every step that he takes. We ask these things of you, good spirit, because of the great respect we have for everything that Creator has made. We also ask if there's anybody that's listening to this that has a relative or a friend who's suffering somehow, whether from depression or addiction things or some kind of physical sickness. We ask that that friend or relative will have a good day today and that they will return soon to the family as a role model and as a mentor. We ask these things of you, good spirit, because of the great respect we have for everything that Creator has made. Miigwech, I know it's going to go well.
Thank you, Elder Dumont. Bonjour et bienvenue à cette cérémonie de passation de commandement du chef d'état-major de la Défense entre le général Jonathan Vance et l'amiral Art McDonald. Je suis le lieutenant-colonel Carl Gauthier et j'ai l'honneur d'être votre maître de cérémonie en cette occasion. Good afternoon and welcome to the change of command of the Chief of the Defense Staff from General Jonathan Vance to Admiral Art McDonald. I am Lieutenant Colonel Carl Gauthier and I have the honor of being your master of ceremony on this occasion. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is Her Excellency, the Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada. We would like to acknowledge the Algonquin Nation, whose traditional and unceded territory we are gathered upon today. Nous tenons à rendre hommage à la nation algonquine qui nous rassemble aujourd'hui sur son territoire traditionnel et non cédé. The biography of the main participants in today's event can be found in your program, which is available for those attending virtually on the Canadian Armed Forces Facebook page. La cérémonie d'aujourd'hui sera différente à bien des égards en raison de la situation actuelle. Les restrictions provinciales et municipales font en sorte que seulement quelques personnes seront présentes physiquement à la cérémonie. Principalement, le chef d'état-major de la Défense sortant ainsi que son successeur. Les autres intervenants se joindront à l'événement de façon virtuelle. As you will no doubt understand, today's event will be considerably different from the usual. Provincial and municipal restrictions dictate that only a few persons will physically attend the ceremony. The outgoing and incoming chiefs of the defense staff will arrive shortly. Several dignitaries will participate in the event virtually. Some components, such as the Guard of Honor, had to be omitted, while others have been adapted, and I will provide explanations as we proceed. And now, General Jonathan Vance, outgoing Chief of the Defense Staff, and Admiral Art McDonald, incoming Chief of the Defense Staff, will join us in the room and take their seats. I would like, first of all, to acknowledge the virtual attendance of our main dignitaries. Nous saluons la présence virtuelle de nos principaux dignitaires. Our presiding officer, Her Excellency, the Right Honorable Julie Payette, Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada. Son Excellence, la Très Honorable Julie Payette, Gouverneur général et Commandante en chef du Canada. The Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. Le Très Honorable Justin Trudeau, Premier ministre du Canada. The Honorable Harjit Sajjan, Minister of National Defense. L'Honorable Harjit Sajjan, Ministre de la Défense nationale. And the Honorable Laurence MacAulay, Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defense. L'Honorable Laurence MacAulay, Ministre des Anciens combattants et Ministre associé à la Défense nationale. Please rise for our national anthem, interpreted by the Central Band of the Canadian Armed Forces. Nous débuterons la cérémonie par l'interprétation de notre hymne national. You may be seated. Puis vous asseoir. At this time, the Chaplain General of the Canadian Armed Forces, Major General Guy Chapdelaine, will offer a moment of reflection. L'aumônier général des Forces armées canadiennes offrira maintenant un moment de réflexion.
In respecting individual conscience and belief, I invite you to take this moment for prayer or personal reflection. We assemble today much as we have for the last 10 months, at a distance and by virtual means. In the last year, we have come to know the value of our families, friends, and communities in ways we had never before fully appreciated. There has been an undeniable sense of loss as we have been battered by the winds of this storm. Unable to mark significant occasions and life passages in the usual ways. Birth and death, weddings, birthdays, graduations, festivals, and for those of us who share a life together in the profession of arms, changes of command. However, on this day, we have much for which we can be thankful. Today, we honor the service of our current Chief of the Defense Staff, and we welcome his successor. We give thanks for the tremendous leadership, guidance, and strength, which have been General Jonathan Vance's legacy and gift to the members of the Canadian Armed Forces. So too, we pledge our support and commitment to Admiral Art McDonald as he assumes his role and begins his watch as the commander of Canada's fighting forces. Dieu miséricordieux, nous te demandons de bénir les chefs d'état-major de la défense, entrants et sortants, et particulièrement leurs familles, leurs proches, ceux et celles qui ont cru en eux et qui les soutiennent indéfectiblement. Accorde la force nécessaire à tous et à toutes en ces temps difficiles et incertains. Nous prions pour tous les membres des Forces armées canadiennes et leurs familles, afin que nous puissions accomplir la mission de servir le Canada avant nous-mêmes. Nous prions pour les dirigeants de ce monde et de notre pays, pour notre souveraine Élisabeth II, reine du Canada, la gouverneure générale, le premier ministre et le ministre de la Défense nationale. The mantle of leadership bears the weight of our fallen comrades, those whom we will never forget. May we continue to be led by courageous leaders, those to whom we look for vision, encouragement, and guidance. We are thankful for leaders at all levels within the Canadian Armed Forces who are raised up in the face of uncertainty and challenge, and who inspire us to seek a just and caring world. Theirs is the wisdom, compassion, and strength needed to see us through to better days and beyond. May this be so, and may we work to make it so. Amen.
Et maintenant, le chef d'état-major de la Défense sortant, le général Jonathan Vance, prendra la parole. And now, the outgoing Chief of the Defense Staff, General Jonathan Vance.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister, Minister Sajjan, Minister MacAulay, Deputy Minister Thomas, and Senior Associate Deputy Minister Rochette, Admiral McDonald and Savina, General and Flag Officers and Command Chiefs, Chief Petty Officer First Class Gregoire, former Chiefs of the Defense Staff, proud members of the Canadian Armed Forces and Department of National Defense, my dear Carrie, and my family and friends who have been by my side, and all those watching at home or online. This is going to take a very long time if this keeps going on. Thank you for joining us. I have but one job today, and that is to say thank you and congratulations. Mon tout premier et plus important remerciement va à nos fiers marins, soldats, aviateurs et opérateurs des forces spéciales des Forces armées canadiennes, à leurs familles et à celles de nos militaires disparus et à nos vétérans. You have proven time and again that you embrace service before self. You answer to a higher calling, and you are, without doubt, person for person, the best in the world at what you do. In your ships and units, bases and wings, divisions and fleets, you are well led, well trained, and you are increasingly more needed than ever before by your country. As such, new and significant investments in you, your training and your equipment are occurring. New fleets of ships and aircraft, new vehicles, new enablers, new weapons, and importantly, new growth in the size and modernized capabilities of the armed forces are occurring. Improved personnel policies and associated resources to better care for you and your families are underway or in development. I think it is a great time to be in the armed forces for many reasons. The fact that Canada and our allies really need you, and that you are worthy of the significant investment this country makes in you, should give you purpose and confidence in your chosen profession. Merci de votre loyauté et de votre leadership. Merci de votre sens de l'humeur, de votre créativité et de votre compassion. Merci de votre patience, de votre professionnalisme et des sacrifices que vous et les membres de votre famille faites chaque jour pour poursuivre une vocation qui exige de vous un renoncement que bien des gens ne connaîtront jamais. Merci de votre courage et de votre sens du devoir. And thank you for responding so well to, and indeed leading, at all levels, the change to our culture from where it has been to one that fully embraces the bedrock of effective teams, the moral duty to care for and support each other, no matter what and no matter who. This will make you as individuals and the armed forces as an institution more relevant, more powerful in every way, and certainly more combat effective. Thank you for all that I have learned from you across the entire force. You are great people who taught me everything of value that I know. Much of that knowledge came from the Army and from my regiment, the Royal Canadian Regiment. This is where my formative experiences occurred. This is where I learned the value of cohesive teams. This is where I learned that good leadership embraces the differences between people and makes the whole better than the sum of its parts, and where I learned to never pass a fault. Thank you to the families of our fallen who sacrificed most for Canada, and from who I learned the very definition of grace. I wear every loss of your loved ones on my heart. And always will. Beaucoup sera attendu des Forces armées canadiennes dans l'avenir. Et c'est l'objet de mon dernier remerciement à vous toutes et toutes, vous tous et toutes. Merci de tout que vous accomplirez dans les jours, les semaines, les mois et l'avenir à venir. Vous serez appelés à vous préparer et à lutter contre un éventail de menaces qui pourraient mettre en péril la sécurité du Canada et de vos compatriotes si elles ne sont pas contrées efficacement. Certaines de ces menaces constitueront un danger pour les valeurs et les intérêts canadiens, et d'autres viseront nos alliés. Mais peu importe leur forme et leur but, vous serez appelés à servir et cela inclut notre soutien à la lutte contre la COVID-19. You will be called upon as well to eliminate the threats from within the armed forces, threats to operational security, threats to cohesion, threats to morale, and threats to operational effectiveness. And that includes all forms of hatred, intolerance, and harm. Face these threats, all of them. Deal with them as the professionals you are, and you will continue to earn the respect and gratitude of Canada, our allies, and your comrades in arms. For all of that, and for being the reason I have served to the best of my ability, I thank you, the men and women of the armed forces, who have served with me over the past 39 years. My second thank you is to my family and friends, including my CDS council and the many important stakeholders with whom I engaged. You have been my anchor and bedrock throughout my tenure as CDS. You have encouraged me and uplifted me. You, in your own individual ways, have supported the CAF directly and indirectly with your wise counsel, your ardent support of our members and their families, and your fervent desire to play a meaningful role. From my days as a recruit through to today, you have been there for me. I know that during my tenure as CDS, I have not always been there for you. The joy of fun times and camaraderie that friendship is for gave way most often to pressing matters of duty. Those of us who attended Royal Roads Military College will remember the sign over Grant Block, an Admiral Nelson quote. Duty is the great business of a sea officer. All private considerations must give way to it, however painful it may be. Those words neatly define the life of a CDS. Nobody knows this better than my friends and especially my wife, Carrie. A lawyer and retired colonel, a professional in her own right, has set aside so much for me as I was CDS. Even when I was physically present, I was always very clearly still working and focused on the forces. Thank you, sweetheart, for loving me and putting up with me. Thank you for being an ambassador for Canada amongst allied chiefs of defense and their spouses from the Indo-Pacific to Europe. Thank you for the hundreds of hours you spent writing personal thank you notes and cards. Thank you for supporting military families and military spouses with your work on spousal employment initiatives. And thank you for introducing our little rescue dog, Pumpkin, to our allies. That little touch of humanity was an icebreaker for many difficult and important discussions amongst chiefs of defense. Who knew? Thank you as well to our children, Nora, Mara, Julia, Max, and Olivia, for your love, support, and understanding. I love you all and could not have done it without you. En parlant de soutien indispensable, je souhaite remercier mes nombreux collègues incroyables, militaires et civils, qui ont servi à mes côtés au sein du bureau de chef d'état-major de la Défense. À toute mon équipe, actuellement dirigée par mon chef d'état-major, le brigadier général Al Mulliwishin, de mon conseiller spécial, le colonel Scott McKenzie, de mon chef de cabinet, le lieutenant-colonel Richard Jolette, de l'officier supérieur d'état-major, le lieutenant-colonel Frank Dion, de mon aide de camp supérieur, Major Darren Gray, et de lieutenant-colonel Dave Devaney et colonel Rob Kearney, vos prédécesseurs et vous avez permis au bureau de fonctionner. Vous avez fait en sorte que je sois en mesure d'accomplir mes tâches. Et vous vous êtes investi chaque jour dans la qualité du travail qui était nécessaire pour faire une différence. I think we made up a pretty happy band of brothers and sisters on most days, and you dedicated yourself to supporting me every day. In so doing, you supported the armed forces in deep and meaningful ways. We learned from each other. We met success with humility and failure with determination to do better, and I am better for knowing you. I must include amongst those who provided close counsel and support my specialist advisors, our judge advocate and CFLA, our surgeon general, our chaplain general, and the director of the Joint Staff. Thank you for your professional expertise and advice as we worked to make wise decisions for the betterment of the armed forces. If I was to give a Lifetime Achievement Award for close support to the CDS, I think you would all agree that my driver and everybody's friend, Master Corporal Charles McLaughlin from Florenceville, New Brunswick, would be most deserving. Thank you, Charles. Saying farewell to my senior commanders and departmental colleagues, is perhaps the hardest of all, and I owe you all a massive debt of gratitude. To my vice chiefs, thank you for taking on the toughest job in defense. Thank you for your loyalty, your work ethic, your wisdom, and counsel. To Guy, Mark, Paul, Jean-Marc, and Mike, thank you. To those who acted as VCDS, and particularly you, Alain, thank you. It is a hard job, but to do so in an acting capacity is even harder, and your willingness to do so is an added credit to your character. Thank you to my Navy, Army, and Air Force service chiefs, to the Chief of Military Personnel, to the commanders of CJOC, CANSOF, and CFINTCOM, to my military representative in NATO, to Commander and Deputy Commander NORAD, and to the Deputy Commander of JFC Naples. Thank you all for your loyalty, your leadership, your friendship. To my Canadian Forces Chief Warrant Officers, Kevin, Alain, and Gilles, and to all the command chiefs, you are the backbone of the CF, and you always will be. You can never be thanked enough for what you do and for your leadership. Pour ceux qui commandent maintenant, vous dirigez des organisations qui subissent des changements majeurs en raison de l'évolution des caractéristiques des conflits. Le pays investit en vous et, avec l'accent qui sera bientôt mis sur la modernisation de NORAD et de la défense continentale, vous vous trouvez en position de faire une réelle différence dans la façon dont nous sommes structurés, dont nous défendons le Canada et, en fin de compte, dont nous nous combattons. Thank you to the leadership and staff of the non-public funds for your dedication to those who serve. To the Strategic Joint Staff and the directors of the Strategic Joint Staff, and particularly our current DOS, Major General Trevor Cadieux, you have my undying thanks and admiration. The role is critical, and you make a difference every day, and I am so blessed to know and work with leaders of your quality, character, and above all, stamina. To our Deputy Minister, Senior Associate Deputy, and ADMs, and the Legion of DND civilians who make up the defense team, thank you. Thank you for the leadership, the expertise and rigor you bring to bear. Thank you for the partnerships and the collaboration. Thank you for the guidance, the incredibly hard work you do, and for the friendships. Thank you as well to the many colleagues I've worked with across government and PCO. To our clerk, Ian Shugart, and to all, I thank you for what you have taught me, and thank you for your service to Canada. To you, Jody and John Forster before you, our deputy ministers, thank you. There is no working relationship I know that is quite like that of CDS and DM. Two people with individual responsibilities, but increasingly shared space, who lead, guide, mentor, and manage two institutions with one objective: defend Canada. Jody, we came to our jobs with lots in common. I think we were well served by the fact that both our fathers were vice chiefs of the defense staff, who instilled within us a profound respect for what the defense team can achieve, as well as a need to speak our minds and collaborate to get things done. I can never thank you enough, Jody, for your superb qualities as a person and your dedication to Canada and its defense. You are a deeply respected and formidable leader and a dear friend. Had times been different as we grew up, it could very well have been you instead of me or Art standing here assuming command. I will miss working with you, Jody, and I wish you all the best in the future. Mes derniers remerciements s'adressent au Canada, aux Canadiennes et aux Canadiennes et à notre gouvernement. Aux gouverneurs généraux que j'ai servis, à mes ministres et premiers ministres et à votre personnel. Je vous suis reconnaissant pour bien des choses, y compris la confiance que vous aviez en moi et les forces armées canadiennes. Mais aujourd'hui, je tiens à vous remercier pour votre superbe choix de mon remplaçant. À notre greffier et au ministre Sajjan et à tous ceux qui ont participé au processus jusqu'au premier ministre Trudeau, compris dans ce groupe, vous avez fait un choix inspiré en choisissant l'Admiral McDonald comme 20e chef d'état-major de la défense du Canada. Vous avez trouvé en lui un officier de grande qualité personnelle, avec l'expérience et les qualifications professionnelles nécessaires pour inspirer confiance partout où cela est nécessaire. You have selected an individual who will champion and lead necessary changes to our culture while ensuring combat capability remains the core of our business. He will do his duty. He will set aside personal considerations, no matter how painful. He will defend this country and its interests and allies, and he will defend our values in this institution we love. Art, you will find that many may think they know what it is to be CDS, but you really can't know it unless you are it. Well, Admiral, my friend, you're it. You are an inspired choice indeed, and therefore I offer to you, Art and Sabina, from Carrie and me, our heartfelt, sincere congratulations on becoming CDS. Thank you both for the monumental personal effort you will give of yourselves for the armed forces, our families, and for all Canadians. We wish you fair winds and following seas. Bravo Zulu, my friend. Thank you. Merci. CDS, one-liner, out.
The Canadian Armed Forces Ensign is the distinguishing flag of the Chief of the Defence Staff. It is a white flag that bears in a canton, that is the top left corner, the Canadian flag, and on the fly, that is to the right, the Canadian Armed Forces badge. Traditionally, the ensign would be transferred at this stage of the event. The outgoing Chief of the Defence Staff, in passing the ensign to the Governor General, relinquishes his command to his superior. In turn, the incoming Chief of the Defence Staff, in receiving the ensign from the Governor General, signifies his acceptance of his new command. This element has to be omitted today, but the ensign is here present behind me. Le drapeau des Forces armées canadiennes est aussi le drapeau distinctif du chef d'état-major de la Défense. En passant le drapeau au gouverneur général, le chef d'état-major de la Défense sortant marque ainsi la fin de son mandat. En recevant le drapeau des Forces armées canadiennes des mains du gouverneur général, le chef d'état-major de la Défense entrant marque sa prise de commandement. Malheureusement, cette composante de la cérémonie doit aujourd'hui être omise, mais le drapeau est ici présent derrière moi. J'invite maintenant le général Vance et l'amiral McDonald à s'avancer pour signer le parchemin officiel, confirmant ainsi la passation des pouvoirs. Le document a été signé au préalable par la commandante en chef. In signing the change of appointment certificate, General Vance officially relinquishes his command to his successor, Admiral McDonald. Her Excellency, the Governor General, has already signed the document to authenticate the transfer of command. You will notice on the table the chain of office of the Principal Commander of the Order of Military Merit, a position which the new Chief of the Defence Staff also assumes by virtue of his new office. Le nouveau chef d'état-major de la Défense devient aussi le commandeur principal de l'Ordre du Mérite militaire, dont le collier de fonction repose sur la table. It is the custom for the CDS's driver to present the outgoing CDS with the Canadian Armed Forces pennant. The pennant is flown on the CS's vehicle for official functions. The presentation took place earlier when Master Corporal Charles McLaughlin presented the pennant to General Vance, as you can see in this photograph. Le chauffeur du chef d'état-major de la Défense a présenté le fanion des Forces armées canadiennes au général Vance, selon la coutume. Son Excellence, la très honorable Julie Payette, gouverneur général et commandante en chef du Canada, prendra maintenant la parole. Her Excellency, the Right Honorable Julie Payette, Governor General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada.
Merci, monsieur. Monsieur le Premier ministre, Ministre MacAulay, Minister Sajjan, General Vance, Admiral McDonald, Madame la sous-ministre Jody Thomas, officier militaire et dirigeant civil qui est à l'écoute, distingués invités, mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. It is my honor and privilege to be part of this time-honored ceremony, the passing of the command for the Canadian Armed Forces. Je suis ravie de présider cette cérémonie et de pouvoir vivre cette journée toute spéciale avec vous, ainsi qu'avec deux hommes remarquables et leurs familles. But first, let me salute the members of the Canadian Forces who are watching today from locations across Canada and in the world. This year, in particular, you members of the Canadian Forces, have been asked to go far beyond the call of duty to assist and support Canadians in the battle against the virus. You have put yourself at risk in order to serve, all the while hampered by lockdowns and public health restrictions. Canadians have been heartened by your role in the fight. We trust you for good reason, and we thank you. Merci à tous. La passation de commandement est un événement important dans la vie militaire canadienne. Tous ceux qui font partie des forces sont au courant de ce qui se passe aujourd'hui. Yet, for most Canadians, there are no obvious outward signs. A leader here today is passing the torch to another. No break, no interruption. This remarkable service is simply continuing on to tomorrow and to every day thereafter, as solid and dependable as the Canadian Shield. Some powers are meant to change hands quietly and peacefully, and you are all witnesses of this important event today. En tant que commandant en chef, j'ai le privilège de rencontrer les membres des forces canadiennes et d'honorer leur dévouement envers notre pays. J'ai vu de mes propres yeux, à de nombreuses occasions, à quel point nos militaires travaillent fort, tant à l'étranger qu'au pays, pour défendre nos valeurs de paix, de liberté et de démocratie. I am particularly proud of the work that was done in this regard by the longest-serving Chief of the Defense Staff in the history of our country, General Jonathan Vance. He is the son of the late Lieutenant General Jack Vance and a proud soldier of the Royals, the Royal Canadian Regiment, whose battle honors date back to the War of 1812. General Vance's service as CDS was distinguished by his profound understanding of the global security risks and threats facing Canada and its allies. He had a clear view how to translate tactical needs into strategic goals, and he made sure that a versatile, flexible force was ready to respond to the government's needs in whichever situation, in whichever place. With poise and humility, General Vance provided judicious advice, tackled tough issues, including needed changes within the military to move past beyond unacceptable attitudes. And he led the Canadian Forces to face the new demands of today's warfare environment, a world in which invisible enemies, whether domestic, foreign, or planetary, whether human, biological, or binary, must be taken seriously. General Vance, like so many others, accomplished all of his duties while balancing military and family life. He was blessed with the support of his wife, Miss Carrie Vance, and their children, Olivia, Nora, Max, Julia, and Mara. I know you're listening, Carrie, and I'd like to say to you that while you were taking care of a professional career, young adults, and a soldier, you also shared your deep concerns and compassion for our military veterans and families at every assignment, at every occasion. Military life can be incredibly hard on people, but you are a living example of how it can be done efficiently with grace and flair. Thank you, Madame. En passant, le général Vance ne m'a pas confié ses plans pour l'avenir, en tout cas pas pour l'instant. J'espère qu'il le fera, car j'espère bien que nous resterons en contact. Mais je suis convaincue que quelle que soit l'institution ou l'organisation avec laquelle il s'associera, il saura se distinguer et contribuera grandement par sa présence. General Vance, a grateful nation wishes you the best, wherever your next endeavors take you. All the best to you and to your family. Thank you for your service, sir. And so now the torch has been passed onto the 20th Chief of the Defense Staff of Canada, Admiral Art McDonald. Before I sing your praises, sir, I'd like to point out that you are not the first extraordinary son of Nova Scotia called Art McDonald. There is, in fact, another Blue Noser called Art McDonald, who won the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physics for solving the solar neutrino mass question. Perhaps Art McDonald is a common name where you come from. but I can tell you there is nothing common in the world of achievements. We have two extraordinary individuals leading two extraordinary teams, and both come from Canada's ocean playground. I must say it's one of my personal pride that I can claim that I know you both. Amiral, en tant que chef d'état-major de la Défense du Canada, vous serez appelé à diriger l'une des forces armées les plus agiles du monde. Vous deviendrez également le principal défenseur des valeurs canadiennes partout où nos troupes sont déployées. Et vous serez l'une des voix les plus importantes pour défendre la paix et la sécurité. Vous incarnerez notre engagement profond envers le bien collectif, d'un océan à l'autre et aux quatre coins du monde. Nous nous sommes déjà rencontrés à quelques reprises déjà, notamment depuis que vous avez pris le commandement de la Marine royale canadienne. Je connais également de nombreuses personnes qui vous connaissent et j'aimerais en fait vous faire part de certaines des informations que j'ai reçues. It turns out that the perception in the Navy is that, sir, you are an ultimate leader and team player. I am told that you can engage in official speak efficiently and appropriately, while letting people under your command know precisely what is expected of them. Facts matter, and you don't hide them. I couldn't agree more. Speaking of facts, here are just a few more I have gathered. I know for a fact that you have worked especially hard to improve the Navy's recruitment process. For example, you've helped open positions within the reserve, positions such as the cyber warriors, to bring in young people possessing special skills. Besides mere enrollment, it serves two important purposes. One, addressing today's complex and ever-changing needs for expertise in cybersecurity. And two, giving young people who have these special skills a chance to become part-time sailors and reserve Navy officers while remaining at the forefront of their professional trade in the civilian world. That's a brilliant idea. I also know for a fact that you've been most supportive and a supportive force behind several diversity initiatives. I think in particular of the Raven program in BC, reaching out to the Aboriginal youth, and of the remarkable recruiting successes at Toronto's HMCS York Reserve, to name but just these few. This forward thinking, Admiral, when applied to the entire armed forces you are now in charge of, will make our military more inclusive and representative, a force that resembles the very diverse society it protects. C'est ce que je souhaite ardemment, une force toujours plus inclusive et représentative de la société canadienne. I'd like to extend my very best wishes and thanks to your wife, Sabina, for this demanding role she accepted to do at your side. Comme vous le voyez, je porte l'uniforme et je ne pourrais être plus fière d'appartenir à la grande famille militaire. I proudly wear the wings of my trade and I cherish being part of the military family. What matters to it matters to me. Maintenant, vous savez probablement déjà, Amiral McDonald, que le chef d'état-major sert également d'aide de camp au gouverneur général. Et cela ne veut pas seulement dire que vous portez maintenant les aiguillettes d'or et que nous nous rencontrerons régulièrement. Cela signifie aussi que nous servirons nos militaires ensemble. J'ai hâte de travailler avec vous, de visiter nos troupes et de les voir en action, ainsi que de reconnaître l'excellence dans les rangs et à tous les niveaux. As the command passes on this special day, I cannot think of a better person than you, Admiral Art McDonald, to succeed General Jonathan Vance to lead our forces forward and to accomplish Canada's mission at home and around the world. Vous avez toute ma confiance et je sais que vous ferez un travail fantastique. Fair winds and following seas, but if you allow me some RCAF parlance, Godspeed, sir.
Merci, Votre Excellence. Le très honorable Justin Trudeau, Premier ministre du Canada, prendra maintenant la parole. The Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis très heureux d'être ici en compagnie de la gouverneure générale Julie Payette et du ministre Sajjan. Le ministre MacAulay et la sous-ministre Thomas sont aussi des nôtres afin de remercier le général Jonathan Vance pour son service et de souhaiter la bienvenue au nouveau chef d'état-major de la Défense, l'amiral Art McDonald. General Vance, John, you've always talked about service before self. Well, over your 39 years in the armed forces, Canadians got to see exactly what that means. You joined thousands of our brave women and men in uniform overseas, serving 2 tours as commander of Joint Task Force in Afghanistan and Task Force Kandahar. You put yourself in harm's way to maintain peace and security, earning the Meritorious Service Cross not once, but twice. And just this past Thursday, you were awarded the United States Legion of Merit. General, your service reminds us of what it means to stand on guard for our country. Thank you for all that you've done. Général Vance, la population canadienne est non seulement reconnaissante pour votre service à l'étranger, mais aussi pour tout ce que vous avez fait ici, au pays. Les gens se souviendront du soutien que vous leur avez offert quand leurs maisons et leurs communautés étaient menacées par des feux de forêt ou des inondations. Ils se souviendront de vos efforts pour protéger leurs parents et leurs grands-parents dans les centres de soins de longue durée pendant cette pandémie. Grâce à votre leadership, les Canadiens ont toujours pu se fier aux forces armées quand ils en avaient besoin. So once again, on behalf of a grateful country, thank you for your service, and thank you to Terry and your family for enabling and supporting you as you served. I wish you and your family all the very best, John. As Canada says thank you to one of the longest serving military commanders in our history, we can all rest assured that the forces will be in good hands as we welcome our new Chief of Defense Staff, Admiral Art McDonald. Admiral McDonald, the first Nova Scotian to hold the role, takes over during an incredibly challenging time. In an increasingly unpredictable world, the Canadian Armed Forces are being called upon to do even more and to work with our allies in pursuit of international peace and security. As always, I know that our brave members of the armed forces stand ready to meet the challenge. Right now, thousands of our women and men in uniform are serving on 20 missions around the world, proudly representing Canada and helping to make a positive difference. No matter where they are needed, our troops are always willing to step up for others. Look no further than the remarkable work soldiers did right here in Canada to protect our most vulnerable in long-term care homes. Their dedication to the Canadian values of service and sacrifice represents the best of who we are. As we fight this pandemic, I know that we will be able to rely on the professionalism and expertise of our armed forces once again, especially as we roll out the largest immunization in our country's history. This campaign is a massive endeavor, but Admiral, I know that you're more than up to the task. After all, you've helped respond to wildfires and floods through Operation Lentus, moving vital equipment and saving lives. And of course, overseas, you've led a sea-based response to provide humanitarian assistance after the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. Admiral, en plus d'être une source d'inspiration pour nos troupes, vous saurez veiller sur elles. Vous avez été là pour vos camarades de bord après la perte tragique de 6 marins à bord du NCSM Fredericton et le décès d'un marin sur le NCSM Winnipeg. Vous avez contribué à éliminer les comportements haineux et vous avez rendu la Marine royale canadienne plus inclusive. Personne ne devrait subir de harcèlement ou de discrimination au travail. Amiral, je sais que vous allez maintenir le cap sur l'objectif de rendre le milieu de travail plus sûr et encore plus inclusif au sein des forces grâce à l'opération Honor. Vous avez servi notre pays avec honneur et bravoure et je suis heureux de vous accueillir en tant que chef d'état-major de la Défense. Merci de servir votre pays. J'ai bien hâte de travailler avec vous, Art, pour continuer de faire en sorte que le Canada reste fort et libre. Merci. Je repasse maintenant la parole au lieutenant-colonel Carl routier.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Thank you, Prime Minister. L'honorable Harjit Sajjan, ministre de la Défense nationale, prendra maintenant la parole. The Minister of National Defense, the Honorable Harjit Sajjan.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister, Minister MacAulay, Deputy Minister Thomas, General Vance, Admiral McDonald, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, loved ones, and others joining us online. Bonjour et tous. I want to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Despite the challenges we currently face across Canada, today we join together to honor the careers of two exceptional Canadians, two military leaders who have helped steer the Canadian Armed Forces through major changes in complex operating environments, in the face of new global threats, even in a once-in-a-century pandemic. General Vance, it's my first day as Minister of National Defense. You have provided your sage guidance and advice about the security issues affecting our country and our members in uniform. And through your leadership, you have helped to ensure that our members and their families remain at the heart of everything we do. You have made it a personal mission to support Canadian Armed Forces members across their entire careers, from when they walk into a recruiting center to when they transition into civilian life. You have helped build an environment that is more inclusive, more diverse, and safer for all our members. I will always be grateful for your leadership on Operation Honor in particular. This includes your help to develop the path to dignity and respect, the Canadian Armed Forces Sexual Misconduct Response Strategy. You have shaped many of the conditions for major and necessary cultural and institutional changes in the Canadian Armed Forces. Though we have more work to do, you have worked hard to ensure that all those who serve our country can do so in an environment free from harassment and discrimination. At the same time, you have helped Canada to be a reliable and engaged international partner, even as others have turned away from multilateralism, while at the same time also ensuring we remain strong at home, making sure that the Canadian Armed Forces members are equipped to respond when disasters strike within our borders. No matter the challenge, under your leadership, the Canadian Armed Forces members have risen to the occasion every single time. They have excelled during uniquely challenging circumstances, like supporting healthcare workers in their fight against COVID-19 in long-term care facilities or by fighting floods and forest fires. It takes a special kind of leader to do all these things effectively and to ensure that we are well positioned to tackle our biggest threats over the years and decades to come. Thank you, General Vance, for your counsel and your leadership. Admiral McDonald, you are the right person to take on the critical role of the Chief of Defense Staff. In a year marked by tragedy and uncertainty, the Royal Canadian Navy has been hit particularly hard, from the helicopter crash in the Ionian Sea that claimed 6 Canadian Armed Forces members to the tragic loss of a sailor from HMCS Winnipeg just last month. Through it all, you have been a tireless leader to your shipmates. Under your watch, the Royal Canadian Navy has become a more diverse and inclusive organization, including through the new guidance on addressing hateful conduct and the rank change initiative last year. And Canadian sailors have continued to demonstrate the best that Canada has to offer in operations all across the globe. In your role as Chief of Defense Staff, you'll be responsible for building on the work General Vance has done to make the Canadian Armed Forces a safer and more welcoming environment. The Canadian Armed Forces needs to continue to show leadership by enacting a total culture change that eliminates extremism, discrimination, and systemic barriers from the ranks. As an institution, this is a top priority because we can only succeed when every member of the defense team feels welcome and is treated with dignity and respect. Those who hold these extremist and racist views are not welcome in our ranks, and we will complete this culture change in tandem with our contributions to Canada's recovery from COVID-19. You will ensure that the Canadian Armed Forces members are deployed where and whenever they are needed most, serving in northern, Indigenous, and remote communities across the country, and supporting the Public Health Agency of Canada with vaccine distribution. and you will continue to deliver on our investments outlined in our fully funded defense policy, Strong, Secure, and Engaged. We know that these types of investments are critical to Canada's recovery. They help support jobs and economic opportunities for people across our country, while making sure that our Canadian Armed Forces members have the tools they need to be agile and adaptable in the face of our biggest threats here at home, across North America, and around the world. And back to you, General Vance. You leave behind an impressive legacy as CDS and from your 39 years of service in the Canadian Armed Forces. Although vacation options are limited right now, I hope you, Carrie, and your girls enjoy a well-deserved break. I want to thank you for everything you have done over the last 5.5 years and for almost over 4 decades in the Canadian Armed Forces. You have put service before self. And for good reason. Many will talk about your time as CDS, but I will always remember our time together in Kandahar. Now, every Canadian Armed Forces members we lost as a nation was difficult. But I know that losing Nick was exceptionally hard for you because he was part of your TAC. And on that fateful day, I will forever remember you placing your hand on Nick to say goodbye. And then you picked up your rifle and took a security position where a gap needed to be filled. And given your rank, you didn't need to do that. And some would even say that given your rank, you shouldn't have. But you did, because that is what good leaders do. And I want Canadians to know that you shared the same risk with your troops. So as a token of my appreciation of our service together, John, I want you to have a personal memento in the form of a special handcrafted kirpan, as well as my M&D medallion. Now, COVID-19 prevents me from handing this to you directly, but my MA will see that you receive this very shortly. I want to congratulate you on your well-earned retirement. It was wonderful to serve with you once again. Admiral McDonald, you are stepping into this role at a uniquely challenging time for the Canadian Armed Forces and for our country. We are in the midst of the biggest international crisis since the Second World War. We are seeing the effects of climate change come to bear in our deployments here at home and around the world. And at the same time, we are contending with a global defense and security environment that seems less predictable and less stable. Modernizing NORAD and supporting continental defense alongside our American partner and ally is particularly important in this context. Thanks to your skill, your dedication, and strategic vision, I'm incredibly confident that our military will excel in the face of these challenges. You will lead culture change in the Canadian Armed Forces to eliminate extremism, discrimination, and systemic barriers while helping to keep Canada safe in the years and decades to come. Merci beaucoup et félicitations et vous deux. And to all our Canadian Armed Forces members and your families, thank you for your service to Canada.
Thank you, Minister. Il me fait maintenant plaisir de vous présenter notre nouveau chef d'état-major de la Défense, l'Amiral Art McDonald. It is my honor and privilege to invite our new Chief of the Defense Staff, Admiral Art McDonald, to offer remarks.
Merci, Carl. Votre Excellence, notre Commandant en Chef, Monsieur le Premier Ministre, Minister Sajjan, Minister MacAulay, Deputy Minister Thomas, and Associate Deputy Minister Claude Rochette, General Vance, virtual attendees, especially our extended forces family. Just before I get going, I need to observe that often people say that command is a lonely business, although I've never found that. But in these unprecedented times, as we've gone through this ceremony today, I have to say that for the first time in my life, I find that a change of command has proven to be an incredibly lonely business. John, thank you for being here today. And thank you for all of you, including Her Excellency, the Prime Minister, ministers for joining in an interactive way, and for the thousands of you that are joining from afar, virtually. Some people wait for this moment virtually an entire career. And if you are a young officer out there now aspiring to that, as you're making your wish and talking to that genie, please make sure you put the emphasis on the right word as you go through that. Virtual is something we ultimately want to put behind us. Mesdames et messieurs, merci d'avoir décidé d'assister virtuellement aujourd'hui. Je tiens tout d'abord à remercier le maître de cérémonie, le lieutenant-colonel Carl Gauthier, ainsi que les nombreux organisateurs de cette importante cérémonie qui ont fait les préparations nécessaires pour la cérémonie virtuelle. Bravo à vous tous. J'aimerais aussi remercier Major General Guy Chapelain, mon cher ami, pour les prières et Anne Albert Dumont pour la cérémonie de purification au commencement. Next, let me also begin in the spirit of reconciliation and in celebration of a proud history shared by acknowledging the traditional Algonquin Anishinaabe territory from which we are transmitting today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud that this has become a common practice in the Canadian Armed Forces. We know that the spirit of inclusion and diversity enriches us. Mesdames et messieurs, aujourd'hui, c'est pour moi un privilège extraordinaire d'être nommé chef d'état-major de la Défense du Canada. After a too long two-day hiatus from command, having turned over the Navy to Vice-Admiral Vance on just Tuesday of this week, it is indeed an extraordinary privilege to be appointed once again a commander of the great Canadians that we simply call sailors, soldiers, aviators, and special forces operators, and to be a key leader amongst our wider defense team teammates. Je suis touché et honoré de prendre le relève de General Vance, un leader si remarquable et influent. En tant que 20e chef d'état-major de la Défense et d'être chargé de prendre soin de mes coéquipiers et des familles qui sont soutiennent et de leur donner le moyen d'atteindre l'excellence. There is no greater privilege or responsibility than to be charged with advocating for, empowering, and leading you, ladies and gentlemen. And speaking of putting people first, a few acknowledgements and thank yous. Votre Excellence, merci de présider aujourd'hui et de la part de tous les membres des forces, merci pour votre intérêt et soutien pour vos forces. Premier ministre, Monsieur, merci de m'avoir choisi et d'avoir confiance en moi pour combler ce rôle important. Minister Sajjan, thank you, sir, for the steady leadership that you've given as Minister of National Defense. I know I speak for the entire force and defense team when I say that we appreciate your commitment to ensuring that our people have the equipment that they need, as well as always very evident commitment to ensuring that our CAF members and their families are well cared for and well supported. Thank you, sir. Thank you, General Vance, for your 4 decades of leadership in service to Canada and your teammates in the Canadian Armed Forces, including this latest final tour as the longest serving chief, where you made a contribution that will be even far more enduring. You know, John, I wish I had the opportunity to know you as a young RCR platoon officer. By all reports, you were a dynamo, full of energy, enthusiasm, and commitment to delivering while leading change. You know, nothing like the kind of guy I got to see over the last 5 years. Seriously, though, what can be added to the voices that have already attested to what a difference you have made to the Canadian Armed Forces and to Canada? I can and must add a chorus of 100,000 voices, your teammates, who would all bid you our enduring thanks. That's the kind of impact that you've had. On a personal note, John, I want to thank you for growing your relief. I'm hugely appreciative of your confidence and trust in appointing me as your 36th Commander of the Royal Canadian Navy, and for having me at your table of most trusted advisors as one of your Joint Chiefs. Your encouragement, support, and mentorship has helped me prepare for today and the days that will come. And while she's not able to join us here today, we saw her in a video link earlier, I join you, John, in thanking your wife, Carrie, for her many tireless contributions and supports for the Canadian Forces family, as well as, of course, for her routine service and sacrifice in support of you. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you to your children, Nora, Mara, Julia, Max, and Olivier, for sharing you with us. Thank you all. You have the eternal gratitude of the Forces family. Turning to my family, also not here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I simply wouldn't be here without my wife of more than 30 years. I absolutely must note her tremendous support and never-ending sacrifices to enable me in what she calls working on her art for very obvious reasons. It takes a special person to be a Navy wife, and she is surely both. She's the woman who has made me the person that I am, and I thank you, sweetheart. I love you. Forgive me, too, for a loving shout-out and thank you to our family as they look in, including my retired Army father-in-law and my 5 siblings, 2 retired Army brothers and a retired Air Force sister. An impressive group that has been incredibly supportive and inspirational to me, despite the fact that I hold black sheep status as a sailor and an officer in my family. En parlant de famille, je dois saluer la famille élargie de la marine, ainsi que mes camarades de bord, de qui j'ai tant appris et qui sont en grande partie responsables de mon accession à ce nouveau poste. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it obviously takes more than a village to deliver a new Chief of Defense Staff, so please indulge me for a few more thank yous. To begin with, a shout out to Deputy Minister Thomas for the energy, leadership, and professionalism she brings to the department. Jody, I'm so excited to be your executive shipmate and to share a watch with you. En parlant de partager le cœur, je suis ravi de rejoindre mon vieil ami et camarade de bord, le premier mate de première classe de PAC, Gilles Grégoire, après avoir servi pour la dernière fois avec lui en tant que membre de l'équipe de commandement des forces maritimes du Pacifique. We're getting the band back together, my friend. Je tiens également à saluer les membres de mon équipe de chefs d'état-major interarmés, que je suis, sont des grands leaders et sur lesquels je vais pouvoir compter pour continuer à fournir le leadership, l'énergie et l'intelligence dont des FAC ont besoin pour réussir. Building and maintaining and operating that national institution that is the CAF requires also individual and collective leadership, commitment, and contributions from across the country and beyond. So I'd be remiss if I didn't salute and thank the significant cadre of elected officials, public servants, industry members, and academics, as well as our allies and partners from across the globe who would normally have joined us today, but I'm sure are instead watching online. And finally, and most importantly, Bravo Zulu, and thank you all to my shipmates, the absolutely amazing Canadians who are my teammates across the Canadian Forces and the defense team. Thank you for your enormous efforts under General Vance's leadership to deliver the go-to, no-fail force that Canadians have come to expect, upon which they depend. Qu'il s'agisse d'assurer la protection des citoyens au pays, nous faisons face aux forces de la nature pour protéger les Canadiens contre les incendies de forêt, les inondations et les tempêtes de neige. En soutenant les mesures prises contre le COVID-19 dans les établissements de soins de longue durée et les communautés éloignées, ou en travaillant côte à côte avec nos partenaires de services publics pour remplir la mission cruciale relative à l'administration des vaccins. Whether it's contributing to securing our continent as a steadfast ally on NORAD missions or in the protection of our sovereignty and the defense of North America from coast to coast to coast, ou qu'il s'agisse d'un engagement à l'étranger, tout en dirigeant un groupe maritime permanent de l'OTAN, comme l'a fait le Commodore José Kurtz en 2019, la première femme à exercer ses fonctions dans l'histoire de l'OTAN, ou comme le fera le Commodore Brad Pitt de la semaine prochaine, les 2 frégates canadiens agissant comme navires amiraux. Tout en formant le cœur d'un groupe tactique multinational de l'OTAN en Lettonie, ou moyenne, où le Major Général Jenny Carignan et, avant elle, le Major Général Danny Fortin commandant la mission de l'OTAN en Iraq. Through CAF efforts to assist with security reform and security force training in Ukraine, through near continuous, persistent presence in the Indo-Asia Pacific, through routine deployments of Her Majesty's Canadian ships and Royal Canadian Air Force Aurora Maritime Patrol aircraft, or in space, or in cyberspace. Canadian Armed Forces members make Canada proud with their unflagging professionalism and get-it-done approach, and they will continue to do so as we deliver on the defense policy, strong, secure, and engaged. La politique de défense du Canada, protection, sécurité, engagement, s'étend sur une période de 20 ans et nous avons pris un excellent départ. Nous avons accompli un énorme travail, que ce soit en mettant sur pied le groupe de transition des FAC, en créant la nouvelle profession de cyberateur ou en marquant des progrès de l'acquisition des navires, des aéronefs et des véhicules nécessaires. L'aventure est commencée, mais il y reste évidemment beaucoup à faire pour mettre en œuvre la politique de défense du Canada, et nous le ferons ensemble. In the Navy, the pursuit of a consistent course or heading is set by the order steady. And so today, as you contemplate what this change of watch might mean, I'm confident that you'll now appreciate that a consistent course is appropriate. We'll remain steady on our 20-year SSE journey, continuing to ensure that the Canadian Armed Forces are an agile, multi-purpose, combat-ready military, operated by highly trained, well-equipped women and men, supported by their government and by fellow Canadians. What is our heading as the watch changes? My order is steady, even as the world around us is not. Le monde est plus exigeant qu'il l'a jamais été, et le Canada a constaté qu'il avait grand besoin de ses forces, tant au pays qu'à l'étranger. Le changement climatique a entraîné une augmentation de la fréquence, de la durée et de la portée des opérations nationales des FAC. Meanwhile, activity in our air and maritime approaches has returned to Cold War levels, and increased Arctic accessibility prevents previously unseen sovereignty and capacity challenges. Likewise, internationally, we are seeing routine challenges to the rules-based international order upon which peace, security, and prosperity depend. Here, our operating environment is dynamic, challenging, and constantly growing more complex. Yet time and time again, while working with allies and partners, our forces show Canadian interest and engagement and bring the best of Canada to an increasingly uncertain and unstable world. Coéquipiers, dans le cadre de la politique de défense du Canada, nous continuerons de renforcer nos relations à l'étranger, de rester des alliés indéfectibles de l'Alliance Canada-États-Unis et de collaborer avec nos partenaires de l'ensemble du gouvernement au pays. Et à mesure de notre environnement stratégique évolue, nous continuerons de moderniser et d'innover. En mettant l'accent sur l'obtention des meilleurs résultats, par exemple, nous accorderons également la priorité aux éléments habilitants interarmés qui nous rendent plus souples et compétents. Je suis ravi d'assumer la responsabilité de chef d'état-major de défense alors que nous réalisons des progrès dans les investissements importants qui sont au cœur de la politique de défense du Canada, en particulier et surtout dans le renouvellement de la flotte navale et le remplacement des chasseurs. Of course, strong, secure, and engaged also called for modernizing NORAD and enhancing our continental defense capabilities. And so, working with our U.S. allies, we will improve how we detect, deter, and if necessary, defeat threats to North America. We will improve our surveillance, defense, and rapid response capabilities, and ensure we have the ability to support operations anywhere in Canada and our approaches. But success will never come down to cold iron or steel alone. Instead, it always comes down to people. Amongst the most significant of the challenges in the future security environment is the human element. That's why Strong, Secure, and Engaged has people at its heart. Ours is a business in which success is tech-enabled, but people-delivered. And so our workforce, workplace, and workspaces matter to tactical, operational, and strategic success. In today's security environment, it isn't enough to do great things, to get outcomes. Equally as important is how we do them. And when we show our work in this regard, that defines who we are. From listening to and working with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities, to championing inclusion and diversity, to tackling conduct issues head on, I am proud of the initial steps that we've taken to act with integrity and improve our institution. Obviously, Operation Honor, an enduring and crucial effort, is also a signature element that is reshaping the environment and culture of our workforce, our workplace, and our workspace. Yet we all know that our journey of self-improvement has many steps remaining, and we all need urge each and every one of them to be taken. Alarmé par les taux récents et continus contre l'injustice raciale qui reflète dans le monde entier, y compris ici au Canada, nous avons eu l'occasion de réfléchir de nos propres lacunes. Ce qui est clair, c'est que le racisme, l'antisémitisme, la misogynie et la discrimination existent dans nos rangs, malgré les efforts déployés par de nombreuses personnes pour y mettre fin. Nous devons tous reconnaître qu'un seul incident est un incident de trop et mettre en lumière les cas et les problèmes afin de pouvoir le combattre. And so, I apologize to you, my teammates, our teammates, who have experienced racism, discriminatory behavior, and/or hateful conduct. I'm deeply sorry. I want you to know that I will do all that I can to support you, to stop these unacceptable acts from happening, and to put into practice our guiding principle: respect the dignity of all persons. Creating a respectful environment is a responsibility that we all share, and I believe that together we can eliminate racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, and discrimination from our ranks. To these ends, I welcome the upcoming work of the Minister's Advisory Panel. Bien entendu, il s'agit d'une tâche colossale qui demandera un effort concerté de la part de chacun d'entre nous. Il faudra que nous nous aidions les uns les autres en écoutant, en apprenant et en agissant. Il faudra un changement de culture. The kind of culture change that we seek won't just happen on its own. A fulsome embrace of diversity and inclusion across the forces requires all of us to proactively and consistently promote the environment we seek. But let's be clear, it will not be enough to play defense, to respond to episodic and systemic racism, discriminatory behaviors, and hateful conduct. We need to do those things. But in addition to these actions, all of us need to be proactively and consistently promoting the workplace we seek. Teammates, this is not telling you anything that you don't know already. We know who we are. We are a team of equals who are better than the individual sum and whose diversity is an advantage in any theater. Let's show it to those that look in and to those that are in, always. Ladies and gentlemen, as the watch turns over, we are fortunate to be following a steady course set by Strong, Secure, Engaged, and the culture change initiatives that we've already launched. This will enable us to remain today and tomorrow the go-to, no-fail force that Canada expects and upon which Canadians have been depending now more than ever. Encore une fois, je vous remercie, Monsieur le Premier ministre, pour la confiance que vous m'avez accordée. Et je remercie mes coéquipiers de l'équipe de la défense pour la confiance que vous me témoignez. Together, we can shine a light in the world's darkest corners and produce the results that Canadians expect of us and that the world expects of Canada. Merci à tous de votre participation virtuelle aujourd'hui. General Vance, sir, I relieve you. Votre Excellence, Madame, j'assume le commandement. J'ai la carte. Merci.
Thank you, sir. Normally, at this point, flowers are presented on behalf of all Canadian Armed Forces members to the spouse of the outgoing CDS for our outstanding support for the forces and to the spouse of the incoming CDS as a sign of welcome. At the request of Mrs. Carrie Vance and Mrs. Sabina McDonald, who are joining the event virtually, a donation will instead be made in their name to the Royal Canadian Regiment Bursary Program and the Royal Canadian Naval Benevolent Fund, respectively. En lieu et place de la traditionnelle présentation de fleurs aux épouses des chefs d'état-major entrants et sortants, un don a été fait en leur nom à des organismes charitables militaires. Veuillez maintenant vous lever pour l'hymne royal. Please rise for the royal anthem, God Save the Queen. In the absence of a guard of honor marching off, a fly past, or cannon fire, the following video depicts a feu de joie of CAF capabilities across the world in honor of General Vance. Ceci complète la cérémonie de passation de commandement du chef d'état-major de la Défense. Nous remercions nos dignitaires en présence virtuelle d'avoir participé à cette importante cérémonie. Son Excellence, la gouverneure générale, le Premier ministre du Canada, le ministre de la Défense nationale et le ministre des Anciens combattants et ministre associé à la Défense nationale. Merci et bonne journée à tous. This concludes the Chief of the Defense Staff Change of Command ceremony. We thank the dignitaries who have joined us virtually to participate in this very important ceremony. Her Excellency, the Governor General, the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Defense, and the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defense. We thank you all, stay safe, and have a very pleasant day.